Chapter 45. Zhu Yu was very annoyed by the words of Zhu Jin, and a fierce hatred for Zhu Liang took root in his heart. He nourished a secret resolve to make away with Zhu Liang. He continued his preparations for war, and when the troops were all mustered and ready, he went in for a farewell interview with his lord. "You go on first, noble sir," said Sun Quan. "I will then march to support you." Zhu Yu took his leave, then with Cheng Pu and Lu Su marched out with the army. He invited Zhu Liang to accompany the expedition, and when Zhu Liang cheerfully accepted, the four embarked in the same ship. They set sail, and the fleet made for Zaiku. About 20 miles from Three Gorges, the fleet anchored near the shore, and Zhu Yu built a stockade on the bank near the middle of their line, with the western hills as a support. Other camps were made near his. Zhu Liang, however, took up his quarters in a small ship. When the camp dispositions were complete, Zhu Yu sent to request Zhu Liang to come and give him advice. Zhu Liang came. After the salutations were ended, Zhu Yu said Cao Cao, though he had fewer troops than Yuan Shao, nevertheless overcame Yuan Shao because he followed the advice given by Zhan Yu to destroy Yuan Shao's supplies at Wuchao. Now Cao Cao has over 800,000 troops, while I have but 50 or 60,000. In order to defeat him, his supplies must be destroyed first. I have found out that the main depot is at the Iron Pile Mountains. As you have lived hereabout, you know the topography quite well, and I wish to entrust the task of cutting off supplies to you and your colleagues Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, and Zhao Zilong. I will assist you with 1,000 soldiers. I wish you to start without delay. In this way we can best serve our masters." Zhu Liang saw through this at once. He thought to himself, "This is a ruse in revenge for my not having been persuaded to enter the service of the Southland. If I refuse, I shall be laughed at. So I will do as he asks and trust to find some means of deliverance from the evil he intends." Therefore Zhu Liang accepted the task with alacrity, much to the joy of Zhu Yu. After the leader of the expedition had taken his leave, Lu Su went to Zhu Yu secretly and said, "Why have you set him this task?" "Because I wish to compass his death without appearing ridiculous. I hope to get him killed by the hand of Cao Cao and prevent his doing further mischief." Lu Su left and went to see Zhu Liang to find out if he suspected anything. Lu Su found him looking quite unconcerned and getting the soldiers ready to march. Unable to let Zhu Liang go without a warning, however, Lu Su put a tentative question: "Do you think this expedition will succeed?" Zhu Liang laughingly replied, "I am an adept at all sorts of fighting, with foot horse and chariots on land and marines on the water. There is no doubt of my success. I am not like you and your friend, only capable in one direction." "What do you mean by our being capable only in one direction?" said Lu Su. "I have heard the street children in your country singing, 'To lay an ambush, hold a pass.' Lu Su is the man to choose, but when you on the water fight, Zhu Yu is the man to use. You are only fit for ambushes and guarding passes on land, just as Zhu Yu only understands fighting on the water," said Zhu Liang. Lu Su carried this story to Zhu Yu, which only incensed him the more against Zhu Liang. "How dare he flout me, saying I cannot fight a land battle? I will not let him go. I will go myself with 10,000 troops and cut off Cao Cao's supplies." Lu Su went back and told this to Zhu Liang, who smiled and said, "Zhu Yu only wanted me to go on this expedition because he wanted Cao Cao to kill me, and so I teased him a little. But he cannot bear that. Now is the critical moment, and Marquis Sun Quan and my master must act in harmony if we are to succeed. If each one tries to harm the other, the whole scheme will fail. Cao is no fool, and it is he who usually attacks enemies through cutting off their supplies. Do you not think Cao Cao has already taken double precautions against any surprise at his own depot? If Zhu Yu tries, he will be taken prisoner. What he ought to do is to bring about a decisive naval battle, whereby to dishearten the northern soldiers, and then find some other means to defeat them utterly. If you could persuade him what his best course was, it would be well." Without loss of time, Lu Su went to Zhu Yu to relate what Zhu Liang had told him. Zhu Yu shook his head when he heard it and beat the ground with his foot, saying, "This man is far too clever. He beats me 10-1. He will have to be done away with, or the Southland will suffer." Said Lu Su, "This is the moment to use people. You must think of the country's good first of all. When once Cao Cao is defeated, You may do as you please." Zhu Yu had to confess the reasonableness of this. Liu Bei had ordered his nephew Liu Kai to hold Zhangxia, while he and the bulk of the army returned to Zaiku. Thence he saw the opposite bank thick with banners and flags, and glittering with every kind of arms and armours. He knew then that the expedition from the Southland had started. So he moved all his force from Jiangxia to Fanku. Then he assembled his officers and said to them, "Zhu Jiang went to Wu some time ago, and no word has come from him, so I know not how the business stands. Will anyone volunteer to go to find out?" "I will go," said Mai Zhu. So presents were prepared, and gifts of flesh and wine, and Mai Zhu prepared to journey to the Southland on the pretext of offering a congratulatory feast to the army. He set out in a small ship and went down river. He stopped opposite the camp, and the soldiers reported his arrival to Zhu Yu, who ordered him to be brought in. Mai Zhu bowed low and expressed the respect which Liu Bei had for Zhu Yu and offered the various gifts. The ceremony of reception was followed by a banquet in honor of the guests. Mai Zhu said, "Zhu Jiang has been here a long time, and I desire that he may return with me. Zhu Jiang is making plans with me, and I could not let him return," said Zhu Yu. "I also wish to see Liu Bei that we may make joint plans. But when one is at the head of a great army, one cannot get away even for a moment. If your master would only come here, it would be very gracious on his part." Mai Zhu agreed that Liu Bei might come, and presently took his leave. Then Lu Su asked Zhu Yu, "What is your reason for desiring Liu Bei to come?" "Liu Bei is the one bold and dangerous man, and must be removed. I am taking this opportunity to persuade him to come. When he shall be slain, a great danger will cease to threaten our interests." Lu Su tried to dissuade him from this scheme, but Zhu Yu was deaf to all Lu Su said. Zhu Yu even issued orders to arrange 100 executioners to be ready to hide within the lining of the tent if Liu Bei decides to come. "And when I drop a cup, that will be a signal for them to fall on and slay him." Mai Zhu returned and told Liu Bei that his presence was desired by Zhu Yu. Suspecting nothing, Liu Bei at once ordered them to prepare a fast vessel to take him without loss of time. Guan Yu was opposed to his going, saying, "Zhu Yu is artful and treacherous, and there is no news from Zhu Jiang. Pray think more carefully." Liu Bei replied, "I have joined my forces to theirs in this attack, and our common enemy. If Zhu Yu wishes to see me and I refuse to go, it is a betrayal. Nothing will succeed if both sides nourish suspicions. If you have finally decided to go, then will I go with you," said Guan Yu. "And I also," cried Zhang Fei. But Liu Bei said, "Let Guan Yu come with me while you and Zhao Xilan keep guard. Jian Yang will hold Xian. I shall not be away long." So leaving these orders, Liu Bei embarked with Guan Yu on a small boat. The escort did not exceed 20. The light craft travelled very quickly down the river. Liu Bei rejoiced greatly at the sight of the war vessels in tiers by the bank, the soldiers in their breastplates, and all the pomp and panoply of war. All was in excellent order. As soon as he arrived, the guards ran to tell Zhu Yu. "How many ships has he?" asked Zhu Yu. They replied, "Only one, and the escort is only about a score." "His fate is sealed," said Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu sent for the executioners and placed them in hiding between the outer and inner tents, and when all was arranged for the assassination he contemplated, he went out to receive his visitor. Liu Bei came with his brother and escort into the midst of the army to the admiral's tent. After the salutations, Zhu Yu wished Liu Bei to take the upper seat, but he declined, saying, "General, you are famous throughout all the empire, while I am a nobody. Do not overwhelm me with too great deference." So they took the positions of simple friends, and refreshments were brought in. Now by chance Zhu Jiang came on shore and heard that his master had arrived and was with the commander-in-chief. The news gave Zhu Jiang a great shock, and he said to himself, "What is to be done now?" He made his way to the reception tent and stole a look therein. He saw murder written on Zhu Yu's countenance, and noted the assassins hidden within the walls of the tent. Then he got a look at Liu Bei, who was laughing and talking quite unconcernedly. But when he noticed the redoubtable figure of Guan Yu near his master's side, he became quite calm and contented. "My lord faces no danger," said Zhu Jiang, and he went away to the river bank to await the end of the interview. Meanwhile the banquet of welcome proceeded. After the wine had gone around several times, Zhu Yu picked up a cup to give the signal agreed upon. But at that moment Zhu Yu saw so fierce a look upon the face of the trusty henchman, who stood sword in hand behind his guest, that Zhu Yu hesitated and hastily asked who he was. "That is my brother, Guan Yu," replied Liu Bei. Zhu Yu, quite startled, said, "Is he the slayer of Yan Liang and Wen Chu?" "Exactly he it is," replied Liu Bei. The sweat of fear broke out all over Zhu Yu's body and trickled down his back. Then he poured out a cup of wine and presented it to Guan Yu. Just then Lu Su came in, and Liu Bei said to him, "Where is Zhu Liang? I would trouble you to ask him to come." "Wait till we have defeated Cao Cao," said Zhu Yu, "then you shall see him." Liu Bei dared not repeat his request, but Guan Yu gave him a meaningful look, which Liu Bei understood and rose, saying, "I would take leave now. I will come again to congratulate you when the enemy has been defeated, and your success shall be complete." Zhu Yu did not press him to remain, but escorted him to the great gates of the camp, and Liu Bei left. When he reached the river bank, they found Zhu Liang awaiting them in their boat. Liu Bei was exceedingly pleased, but Zhu Liang said, "Sir, do you know in how great danger you were today?" Suddenly sobered, Liu Bei said, "No, I did not think of danger." "If Guan Yu had not been there, you would have been killed," said Zhu Liang. Liu Bei, after a moment's reflection, saw that it was true. He begged Zhu Liang to return with him to Fanku, but Zhu Liang refused. "I am quite safe," said Zhu Liang. "Although I am living in the tiger's mouth, I am as steady as the Taishan mountains. Now, my lord, return and prepare your ships and soldiers. On the 20th day of the 11th month, send Zhao Zilong with a small ship to the south bank to wait for me. Be sure there is no miscarriage." "What are your intentions?" said Liu Bei. "When the southeast wind begins, I shall return." Liu Bei would have questioned him further, but Zhu Liang pressed him to go. So the boat started upriver again, while Zhu Liang returned to his temporary lodging. The boat had not proceeded far when appeared a small fleet of 50 ships sweeping down with the current, and in the prow of the leading vessel stood a tall figure armed with a spear. Guan Yu was ready to fight, but when they were near, they recognized that it was Zhang Fei, who had come down fearing lest his brother might be in some difficulty from which the strong arm of Guan Yu might even be insufficient to rescue him. The three brothers thus returned together. After Zhu Yu, having escorted Liu Bei to the gate of his camp, had returned to his quarters, Lu Su soon came to see him. "Then you had cajoled Liu Bei into coming. Why did you not carry out your plan?" asked Lu Su. "Because of that Guan Yu. He is a very tiger, and he never left his brother for a moment. If anything had been attempted, he would certainly have had my life." Lu Su knew that Zhu Yu spoke the truth. Then suddenly they announced a messenger with a letter from Cao Cao. Zhu Yu ordered them to bring him in, and took the letter. But when he saw the superscription, "The First Minister of Han to Commander-in-Chief Zhu Yu," he fell into a frenzy of rage, tore the letter to fragments, and threw them on the ground. "To death with this fellow!" cried he. "When two countries are at war, their emissaries are not slain," said Lu Su. "Messengers are slain to show one's dignity and independence," replied Zhu Yu. The unhappy bearer of the letter was decapitated, and his head sent back to Cao Cao by the hands of his escort. Zhu Yu then decided to move. The van under Gan Ning was to advance, supported by two wings led by Han Dang and Jian Qin. Zhu Yu would lead the center body in support. The next morning the early meal was eaten in the fourth watch, and the ships got under way in the fifth with a great beating of drums. Cao was greatly angered when he heard that his letter had been torn to fragments, and he resolved to attack forthwith. His advance was led by the Supreme Admiral Cai Mao, the Vice Admiral Zhang Yun, and others of the Jingzhou officers who had joined his side. Cao went as hastily as possible to the meeting of the three rivers and saw the ships of the Southland sailing up. In the bow of the foremost ship from the south stood a fine figure of a warrior, who cried, "I am Gan Ning. I challenge anyone to combat." Cai Mao sent his young brother Kai Zun to accept the challenge, but as Kai Zun's ship approached, Gan Ning shot an arrow, and Kai Zun fell. Gan Ning pressed forward, his crossbowmen keeping up a heavy discharge which Cao Cao's troops could not stand. The wings of Han Dan from the left and Zhang Qin from the right also joined in. Cao Cao's soldiers, being mostly from the dry plains of the north, did not know how to fight effectually on water, and the southern ships had the battle all their own way. The slaughter was very great. However, after a contest lasting till afternoon, Zhu Yu thought it more prudent, in view of the superior numbers of his enemy, not to risk further the advantage he had gained. So he beat the gongs as the signal to cease battle and recall the ships. Cao Cao was worsted, but his ships returned to the bank where a camp was made and order was restored. Cao sent for his defeated leaders and reproached them, saying, "You did not do your best. You let an inferior force overcome you." Cai Mao defended himself, saying, "The Jingzhou Marines have not been exercised for a long time, and the others have never been trained for naval warfare at all. A naval camp must be instituted, the northern soldiers trained, and the Jingzhou force drilled. When they have been made efficient, they will win victories. You are the Supreme Admiral. If you know what should be done, why have you not done it?" said Cao Cao. "What is the use of telling me this?" So Cai Mao and Zhang Yun organized a naval camp on the river bank. They established 24 water gates, with the large ships outside, as a sort of rampart, and under their protection the smaller ships went to and fro freely. At night, when the lanterns and torches were lit, the very sky was illuminated, and the water shone red with the glare. On land the smoke of the campfires could be traced for 100 miles without a break. Zhu Yu returned to camp and feasted his victorious fighting force. A messenger bore the joyful tidings of victory to his master Sun Quan. When night fell, Zhu Yu went up to the summit of one of the hills and looked out over the long line of bright light stretching toward the west, showing the extent of the enemy's camp. He said nothing, but a great fear came in upon him. Next day Zhu Yu decided that he would go in person to find out the strength of the enemy. So he bade them prepare a small squadron, which he manned with strong, hardy men armed with powerful bows and stiff crossbows. He also placed musicians on each ship. They set sail and started up the stream. When they got opposite Cao Cao's camp, the heavy stones that served as anchors were dropped, and the music was played while Zhu Yu scanned the enemy's naval camp. What he saw gave him no satisfaction, for everything was most admirable. He said, "How well and correctly built is that naval base. Anyone knows the names of those in command." "They are Cai Mao and Zhang Yun," said his officers. "They have lived in the south a long time," said Zhu Yu, "and are thoroughly experienced in naval warfare. I must find some means of removing them before I can effect anything." Meanwhile, on shore the sentinels had told Cao Cao that the enemy craft was spying upon them, and Cao Cao ordered out some ships to capture the spies. Zhu Yu saw the commotion of the commanding flags on shore and hastily gave the order to unmoor and sail downstream. The squadron at once got under way and scattered. To and fro went the oars, and each ship seemed to fly. Before Cao Cao's ships could get out after them, they were all far away. Cao Cao's ships took up the chase, but soon saw pursuit was useless. They returned and reported their failure. Again Cao Cao found fault with his officers, and said, "The other day you lost the battle, and the soldiers were greatly dispirited. Now the enemy have spied out our camp. What can be done?" In eager response to his question, one stepped out, saying, "When I was a youth, Zhu Yu and I were fellow students and pledged friends. My 3-inch tongue is still good, and I will go over and persuade him to surrender." Cao Cao, rejoiced to find so speedy a solution, looked at the speaker. It was Zhang Gan of Jiuzhong, one of the counseling staff in the camp. "Are you a good friend of Zhu Yu?" said Cao Cao. "Rest content, O Prime Minister," replied Zhang Gan. "If I only get on the other side of the river, I shall succeed. What preparations are necessary?" asked Cao Cao. "Just a youth as my servant, and a couple of rowers. Nothing else." Cao offered him wine, wished him success, and sent him on his way. Clad in a simple linen robe and seated in his little craft, the messenger reached Zhu Yu's camp and bade the guards say that an old friend Zhang Gan wished to see him. The commander was in his tent at a council when the message came, and he laughed as he said to those about him, "A persuader is coming." Then he whispered certain instructions in the ear of each one of them, and they went out to await his arrival. Zhu Yu received his friend in full ceremonial garb. A crowd of officers in rich silken robes were about him. The guest appeared, his sole attendant a lad dressed in a simple blue gown. Jiang Gan bore himself proudly as he advanced, and Zhu Yu made a low obeisance. "You have been well, I hope, since last we met," said Jiang Gan. "You have wandered far and suffered much in this task of emissary in Cao Cao's cause," said Zhu Yu. "I have not seen you for a very long time," said the envoy, much taken aback, "and I came to visit you for the sake of old times. Why do you call me an emissary for the Cao Cao's cause? Though I am not so profound a musician as Shi Kuang of old, yet I can comprehend the thought behind the music," replied Zhu Yu. "As you choose to treat your old friend like this, I think I will take my leave," said Jiang Gan. Zhu Yu laughed again, and taking Jiang Gan by the arm, said, "Well, I feared you might be coming on his behalf to try to persuade me. But if this is not your intention, you need not go away so hastily." So they too entered the tent. When they had exchanged salutes and were seated as friends, Zhu Yu bade them call his officers that he might introduce them. They soon appeared, civil and military officials, all dressed in their best. The military officers were clad in glittering silver armor, and the staff looked very imposing as they stood ranged in 2 lines. The visitor was introduced to them all. Presently a banquet was spread, and while they feasted, the musicians played songs of victory, and the wine circulated merrily. Under the mellowing influence, Zhu Yu's reserve seemed to thaw, and he said, "Jiang Gan is an old fellow student of mine, and we are pledged friends. Though he has arrived here from the north, he is no artful pleader, so you need not be afraid of him." Then Zhu Yu took off the commanding sword which he wore as commander-in-chief, and handed it to Taishi Sai, saying, "You take this, and wear it for the day as master of the feast. This day we meet only as friends and speak only of friendship, and if anyone shall begin a discussion of the questions at issue between Cao Cao and the Southland, just slay him." Taishi Sai took the sword and seated himself in his place. Jiang Gan was not a little overcome, but he said no word. Zhu Yu said, "Since I assumed command, I have tasted no drop of wine. But today, as an old friend is present, and there is no reason to fear him, I am going to drink freely." So saying, he quaffed a huge goblet and laughed loudly. The rhinoceros cups went swiftly round from guest to guest till all were half drunk. Then Zhu Yu, laying hold of the guest's hand, led him outside the tent. The guards who stood around all braced themselves up and seized their shinning weapons. "Do you not think my soldiers a fine lot of fellows?" said Zhu Yu. "Strong as bears and bold as tigers," replied Jiang Gan. Then Zhu Yu led him to the rear of the tent, whence he saw the grain and forage piled up in mountainous heaps. "Do you not think I have a fairly good store of grain and forage? Your troops are brave, and your supplies ample. The Empire's gossip is not baseless indeed." Zhu Yu pretended to be quite intoxicated, and went on, "When you and I were students together, we never looked forward to a day like this, did we? For a genius like you, it is nothing extraordinary," said the guest. Zhu Yu again seized his hand, and they sat down. "A man of the time, I have found a proper lord to serve. In his service we rely upon the right feeling between minister and prince outside, and at home we are firm in the kindly feeling of relatives. He listens to my words and follows my plans. We share the same good or evil fortune. Even when the great old persuaders like Su Qin, Zhang Yi, Liu Jia, and Lai Yiji lived again, even when their words poured forth like a rushing river, their tongues were as a sharp sword. It is impossible to move such as I am." Zhu Yu burst into a loud laugh as he finished, and Jiang Gan's face had become clay-coloured. Zhu Yu then led his guest back into the tent, and again they fell to drinking. Presently Zhu Yu pointed to the others at table and said, "These are all the best and bravest of the land of the south. One might call this the gathering of heroes." They drank until daylight failed, and continued after lamps had been lit. Zhu Yu even gave an exhibition of sword play and sang this song: "When a man is in the world, oh, he ought to do his best. And when he's done his best, oh, he ought to have his rest. And when I have my rest, oh, I'll quaff my wine with zest. And when I'm drunk as drunk can be, oh, I'll sing the madman's litany." A burst of applause greeted the song. By this time it was getting late and the guest begged to be excused. "The wine is too much for me," said John Gan. His host bade them clear the table. As all the others left, Zhu said, "It has been many a day since I shared a couch with my friend, but we will do so tonight." Putting on the appearance of irresponsible intoxication, he led John Gan into the tent and they went to bed. Zhu simply fell, all dressed as he was, and lay there emitting uncouth grunts and groans, so that to the guest sleep was impossible. John Gan lay and listened to the various camp noises without and his host's thunderous saws within. About the second watch he rose and looked at his friend by the dim light of the small lamp. He also saw on the table a heap of papers, and coming out and looking at them furtively, he saw they were letters. Among them he saw one marked as coming from Kai Mao and Zhang Yan, Cao Cao's Supreme Admiral and Vice Admiral. He read it, and this is what it said: "We surrendered to Cao Cao, not for the sake of pay, but under stress circumstances. Now we have been able to hold these northern soldiers into this naval camp, but as soon as occasion offers, we mean to have the rebels' head to offer as a sacrifice to your banner. From time to time there will be reports as occasions serve, but you may trust us. This is our humble reply to your letter." Those two were connected with the Southland in the beginning, thought John Gan, so he secreted the letter in his dress and began to examine the others. But at that moment Zhu turned over, and so John Gan hastily blew out the light and went to his couch. Zhu was muttering as he lay there, as if dreaming, saying, "Friend, I am going to let you see Cao Cao's head in a day or two." John Gan hastily made some reply to load on his host to say more. Then came, "Wait a few days, you will see Cao Cao's head." The old wretch! John Gan tried to question him as to what he meant, but Zhu was fast asleep and seemed to hear nothing. John Gan lay there on his couch wide awake till the fourth watch was beating. Then someone came in saying, "General, are you awake?" At that moment, as if suddenly awakened from the deepest slumber, Zhu started up and said, "Who is this on the couch?" The voice replied, "Do you not remember, General? You asked your old friend to stay the night with you. It is he, of course. I drank too much last night," said Zhu in a regretful tone, "and I forgot. I seldom indulge to excess and am not used to it. Perhaps I said many things I ought not." The voice went on, "A man has arrived from the north." "Speak lower," said Zhu, and turning toward the sleeper, he called him by name. But John Gan affected to be sound asleep and made no sign. Zhu crept out of the tent, while John Gan listened with all his ears. He heard the man say Kai Mao and Zhang Yan, the two commanders, said that they cannot execute the plan in a hurry. But listening as he did with straining ears, he could not make out what followed. Soon after Zhu re-entered and again called out his companion's name. But no reply came, for John Gan was pretending to be in the deepest slumber to hear nothing. Then Zhu undressed and went to bed. As John Gan lay awake, he remembered that Zhu was known to be meticulously careful in affairs, and if in the morning Zhu found that a letter had disappeared, he would certainly slay the offender. So John Gan lay there till near daylight, and then called out to his host. Getting no reply, he rose dressed and stole out of the tent. Then he called his servant and made for the camp gate. "Whither are you going, sir?" said the watchman at the gate. "I fear I am in the way here," replied John Gan, "and so I have taken leave of the commander-in-chief for a time. So do not stop me." He found his way to the river bank and re-embarked. Then with flying oars he hastened back to Cao Cao's camp. When he arrived, Cao Cao asked at once how he had sped, and he had to acknowledge failure. "Zhu is very clever and perfectly high-minded," said John Gan. "Nothing that I could say moved him in the least." "Your failure makes me look ridiculous," said Cao Cao. "Well, if I did not win over Zhu, I found out something for you. Send away these people, and I will tell you," said John Gan. The servants were dismissed, and then John Gan produced the letter he had stolen from Zhu's tent. He gave it to Cao Cao. Cao Cao was very angry, and sent for Kai Mao and Zhang Yan at once. As soon as they appeared, he said, "I want you two to attack." Kai Mao replied, "But the soldiers are not yet sufficiently trained." "The soldiers will be well enough trained when you have sent my head to Zhu. Both commanders were dumbfounded, having not the least idea what this meant. They remained silent, for they had nothing to say. Cao Cao bade the executioners lead them away to instant death. In a short time their heads were produced. By this time Cao Cao had thought over the matter, and it dawned upon him that he had been tricked. A poem says, "No one could stand against Cao Cao. Of sin he had full share. But Zhu Yu was more treacherous, and caught him in a snare. 2 commanders, to save their lives, betrayed a former lord. Soon after, as was very met, both fell beneath the sword." The death of these 2 naval commanders caused much consternation in the camp, and all their colleagues asked the reason for their sudden execution. Though Cao Cao knew they had been victimized, he would not acknowledge it. So he said these 2 had been remiss and so had been put to death. The others were aghast, but nothing could be done. 2 other officers, Mao Jai and Yu Jin, were put in command of the naval camp. Spies took the news to Zhu Yu, who was delighted at the success of his ruse. "Those 2 Kai Mao and Zhang Yun were my only source of anxiety," said he. "Now they are gone, I am quite happy." Lu Su said, "General, if you can continue like this, you need not fear Cao Cao." "I do not think any of them saw my game," said Zhu Yu, "except Zhu Jiang. He beats me, and I do not think this ruse was hidden from him. You go and sound him. See if he knew." Zhu Yu's treacherous plot succeeded well. Dissensions sown, his rivals fell. Drunk with success was he but sought to know what cynic Zhu Jiang thought. What passed between Lu Su and Zhu Jiang will next be related.